I'm Jocelyn Chesson. Pro-Confederate groups pushed back against the City Council's decision to remove the Robert E. Lee statue from Lee Park by filing a lawsuit last week. The lawsuit claims that the state, not the city, has the power to move the statue. Barry Eisenhower is a member of the group called the Virginia Flaggers, an organization that supports the lawsuit and opposes moving the Lee statue. The Flaggers believe that defense of Lee is a defense of their proud Confederate heritage, and they see Lee as a Civil War hero. Eisenhower permitted us to tape his voice, but did not allow a full on-camera interview.
So to us, he's an American veteran. That alone, leave it alone. Just leave it alone, because you're destroying a veterans monument, which is not good. Again, you're degrading the service that he not only gave to this country, but to Virginia. Virginia, if you will, called him to service.
So, in your perspective, was Lee's service in the Army honorable?
Of course it was. All veterans are honorable.
For more than a year, Charlottesville residents strongly protested the Lee statue and debated that honorable part of Lee's service. In June, after the year of discussion, the City Council narrowly voted to remove the statue at an estimated cost of $300,000. University Religious Studies professor Jeline Schmidt, who spoke at several city council meetings, says that Lee's service should not be glorified because he was fighting to preserve slavery.
You don't honor someone that fought for a cause, which is dishonorable. So the war monument argument doesn't hold water with me when he's fighting on the wrong side of the war.
Proponents of moving the statue also argue the design of Lee Park gets history backwards. It puts Lee on a 20-foot pedestal, but downplays the hardships of slaves in Virginia. To find any mention of them at all, you have to walk over here and look down.
The history of Charlottesville and Albemarle County in the Civil War is the history of 52% of the population that was enslaved. You would never know that to look at our public spaces. Instead we have 26 and 24-foot tall monuments, bronze monuments to some Civil War leaders who never even came here. And the only recognition that we have of the 52% of the enslaved population is a 1 foot by 1 foot plaque that is flush with the sidewalk that you literally walk underfoot.
Longtime Charlottesville community member Kenny Jackson, who is running for city council in November, says he was never offended by the statue.
I think one must have pride in themselves, their race, their culture. I mean, if a statue, an inanimate object, bothers you that much as a symbol of something, and most of these people who are saying it, I grew up with their fathers. I knew their grandparents. Didn't bother us. Why does it bother you?
Jackson says that because of the high cost of removal, the fate of the statue should be in the citizens' hands, not in the city council's.
I asked City Council for one simple thing, which 3 of them could have done. Put it on a referendum. Let the citizens say what they want done to it. Do you want to spend tax money on removing a statue which hasn't bothered anyone? And yet still they refuse to do it. It's the citizens' property, it's the citizens' money. Let them have a say if you feel that confident that we want it gone.
And do you think something that's holding back removing the statue is simply the high cost estimation for relocating it?
To say that we don't have the money to move this, or we don't have the money to fight a lawsuit, that's just making a priorities argument. You're saying that it's not a priority to get rid of these relics of white supremacy and make for a more progressive Charlottesville.
Eisenhower, who attended the council meeting in February, says that those who want the statue removed are viewing Robert E. Lee through a false lens of white supremacy.
What does white supremacy have to do with Robert E. Lee? I have no idea. By removing the statue, what is that going to affect the current state of slavery in this country right now? I don't think there's a current state of slavery in the country right now. So that issue's already been dealt with. So I don't understand how it furthers that view.
These statues were part and parcel of that process of establishing Jim Crow rule, putting Black people in their place, and all that. And so this was it was a marking of public space, because with the installation of these monuments in the 1920s, it demarcated these parks as whites only. It stands as a symbol of what Charlottesville values, really. These are our premier public spaces. So it's a very clear statement of what we value.
So to the people who see the statue as in a different light, they see it as a symbol of oppression.
Who sees that? Who has to go in front of that statue and bow down to it and worship it? I mean, how can that statue oppress anybody? It's a statue sitting in the park. You talk about oppression. What does a statue have to do about oppression? Robert E. Lee did not oppress anybody. So why do you say something like that? That's a 21st century political view that's being distorted.
Already these were put in the 1920s as monuments to, kind of basically Jim Crow rule, So there are already these monuments to white supremacy, and then they should be kept in order to teach white people how far, you see what I mean? It's like, for whose benefit then? I don't need an everyday reminder of my oppression. I get that in other ways.
The attempt to remove the statue stems from a wave of similar efforts across the country to remove all symbols which some believe stand for racism and hate. Despite last April's vote, it's not clear how City Council plans to remove the statue and whether the $300,000 estimate is realistic. From Charlottesville, I'm Jocelyn Chesson.